SurePoint Advisors is registered as an investment advisor with the state of New Jersey. Registration of an investment advisor does not imply any specific level of skill or training and does not constitute an endorsement of the firm by Securities and Exchange Commission or any state securities authority.
All right, congratulations. For some reason, you pressed play to listen to this podcast. I'm not really sure if it was the catchy title, Financial Roll Call with James Fay, or maybe you read the podcast description and it interests you. Or maybe you looked at the podcast artwork photo of me and said, yeah, I know that guy, and there's no way he's hosting a podcast. Well, here I am, hosting a podcast. Welcome. Welcome to the introduction episode of SurePoint Advisors Financial Roll Call with James Fay. We are 10-8 in service. This is a podcast for law enforcement, by law enforcement. A little bit about myself. I retired after a 25-year career in law enforcement from the Monmouth County Sheriff's Office. I'm not going to bore you with accolades and assignments that I had throughout my career. However, I'm going to tell you how I got started. I was very fortunate. I was hired at 19 years old. It's unheard of these days. I can assure you one thing, at 19, I knew nothing about finance. I knew two things were going to happen when they pushed that contract across the table for me to sign. One, I was going to get a paycheck every 2 weeks, and two, my parents were going to get off my back. So I signed that contract, and I never looked back. I know what you're saying, probably thinking, what's a retired law enforcement officer going to teach me about finance? Well, let me give you my background in finance. With about 10 years left in my career, I became the account representative for a fraternal order that dealt with life and health insurance for police officers, firefighters, and their families. I loved going around and speaking to cops and firemen in and around finance. I grew a great passion for it. Upon retirement, I continued full-time in finance. I'm currently the Senior Vice President of SurePoint Advisors. SurePoint Advisors is a registered investment advisory in Brielle, New Jersey. We are an independent registered investment advisor. We're not affiliated with any broker-dealer. SurePoint Advisors is the vision of Jason Lamb. Jason is a retired Wall Township police officer. There you go. This is a podcast for law enforcement, by law enforcement. So let me start this introduction episode with a question. As a law enforcement officer, do you often find yourself stressing over decisions related to finance? Sure you do. Everybody does. It's stressful, some of the situations we have to make, whether it's a new car, finance it, buy it outright, lease it, whether it's a mortgage, whatever it might be. There's so many financial decisions we have to make, whether it's the deferred comp guy sitting in the back. Do you sign up? Do you not sign up? These are all decisions that we face, and sometimes we're not educated and we don't make the right decision. So this podcast is going to be an informative podcast that is designed to educate you. It's going to educate you about financial decisions that will arise throughout your career and into retirement. You'll be faced with a lot of them. Some of the topics we'll cover throughout this podcast, benefits you have while you're on the job. I can't tell you how many potential law enforcement clients that we sit down with that have no idea what benefits they have while they're on the job. What you lose when you leave the job. Again, potential law enforcement clients that are getting ready to retire that we sit down with and they have no idea what benefits they're carrying into retirement. These are the things we want to educate you on. How about sickness and disability? Yeah, that magic number, 66 2/3, if you get hurt on the job or sick on the job. What happens if you get hurt or sick off the job? Then what happens? We need to protect your number one asset. And there's ways to do that. So there's many topics that we're going to cover throughout this podcast. Let me tell you why we started this podcast. We used to attend a lot of law enforcement events and hope to get the word out. After March, when COVID hit, obviously we couldn't do that anymore. So we had to regroup, and I decided to start this podcast so I could get this information out to the 40,000 plus police officers here in New Jersey. That's really why we started this podcast. Let me tell you what you're going to expect what you should expect during the episodes. Whatever the topic is, I might get into real life experiences, might be discussions or interviews with people in the field in that topic. I'm going to keep these episodes to 15 minutes, maybe 20 at the most. And we're going to try and get them out weekly. That's our goal. So, our main goal for this podcast is to create a call to action and allow yourself to make an educated and informed decision about your financial future. If that's what you want to do, then this podcast is for you. You need to hit subscribe. You need to tune in to future episodes. So you can check out the podcast description to see how to find us or visit us at shorepointadvisors.com. I'm excited. I'm excited to educate you, to get this podcast off the ground, up and running. We have a lot of different topics we can cover here, and we want you to use this as a resource. That's the most important thing. Use these podcasts as a resource, gain information that you can make a well-informed decision with in and around finance. So with that, this is ShorePoint Advisors Financial Roll Call with James Fay. We'll be 10-7 out of service.